Writers Read by LiTracey. Getting that book in children's hands.
Hi, I'm Tracey Grice and welcome to the Writers Read podcast. I'm a teacher and I'm really passionate about getting kids reading. The inspiration for this podcast came from a quote by American author Nancy Atwell, and she says, "For students of every ability and background, it's the simple, miraculous act of reading a good book that turns them into readers. Because even for the least experienced, most reluctant reader, it's the one good book that changes everything. The job of adults who care about reading is to move heaven and earth to put that book into a child's hands." So this podcast is designed to do just that. It's not only a podcast that can help children and adolescents connect with authors and books, it's also a resource for parents, teachers, and librarians who are helping kids on their reading journey. On this episode of the Writers Read podcast, I'm chatting with Marlies Hobbs, who along with her husband Jai, have co-written the book Fly, Financially Literate Youth. I'm really excited about this episode as it's our first foray into informational reading. And, as always, we'll hear from our regular recommender Rebecca about her thoughts on the book. Normally on the Writers Read podcast, we have our authors read aloud an excerpt from their book. But this time we have permission from the publisher, Penguin Random House, to play you an excerpt from the Fly audiobook, which is narrated by Amy Smith.
The future promise of any nation can be directly measured by the prospects of its youth. John F. Kennedy. Why fly? In 2018, Australia's annual Hilda survey revealed a frightening trend. Fewer than 25% of young people, aged 17 to 24, could accurately answer 5 questions on financial literacy. It comes at a time when household debt is rising, the employment landscape is changing, housing affordability is in crisis, and our youth step into the workforce with a greater education debt than ever before. The economic impacts resulting from the recent coronavirus pandemic highlight more than ever the importance of financial literacy and informed, empowered decision-making. The generation currently leaving school will set out in the knowledge that the household debt-to-income ratio currently stands at 190%. They will exit the doors of tertiary education with a debt that is almost twice that of the generation before them. They will enter a property market where housing affordability is currently in decline and first-home buyers bear the brunt of escalating prices. Those aged 15 to 24 seeking employment will face an unemployment rate almost 3 times the national average. In short, Australia's future will start their adult lives with their wings clipped and their financial destination unknown. They will do so fully aware of the challenges ahead. In 2019, Deloitte found slightly more than half of millennials globally think their personal financial situations will worsen or stay the same in the year ahead. They believe financial burdens will exceed any raises or moves to better-paying jobs. This is what Australia's young people face and feel, and it is time to break the trend. Armed with financial knowledge and literacy, young people can set themselves up for stability and success despite the challenges that might greet them. They can embark on the journey into adulthood equipped to make financial decisions that will better position them throughout the course of their life. This handbook is designed to empower our young people to do just that. Fly, Financially Literate Youth is a factual and inspirational guide to encourage and motivate young people to take control of their financial future and protect themselves from making unnecessary and costly mistakes. It is designed to arm readers with the information they need in one convenient and credible resource, allowing them to make informed decisions and spread their wings as they embrace life after school. Fly has been created in the knowledge that financial literacy empowers young people to leave the nest safely and securely and make better financial decisions. Ultimately, it gives them more freedom, confidence and choice to live life on their terms with the knowledge, the strength, and the resources they need to fly.
The authors of Financially Literate Youth are wife and husband team Marlies and Hobbs from Noosa, Australia. Marlies is an ex-property development lawyer with a passion for education and creative projects, and Jai is a mortgage broker with over 15 years' experience. Together, they've built more than 10 properties, started, owned and operated several businesses, including a mortgage brokerage, retail shop and cafes, a franchise company, online shop, a ready-made meal business and property developments. Having journeyed the highs and lows with backgrounds in law, finance, business, health, property and parenthood, they have a passion to help educate and inspire future generations to soar into life after school and make confident, informed financial decisions. I managed to catch up with Marlies via Zoom to chat about their new book Fly, a book designed to empower young readers. Marlies, welcome to the Writers Read podcast. Today we're talking about your brand new book, Financial Literacy for Youth, Fly, the handbook. So what led you and your husband to write this book?
Well, we've had a real journey, I guess you could say. We were married young, and I was a lawyer, and my husband, Jai, he's been in a mortgage broker for 16, 17 years now. And after the birth of our first son, Troy, he had some health issues, and we ended up in food and franchising and had an international business, which led on to other business opportunities. So ended up being involved in several businesses and building probably a property a year for the last 15 years. So there's been a lot of activity going on in our lives over the years together. And in 2016, after many, I guess, highs and lows, I got to thinking there was a lot that we had to learn on the go. And there were some things that I felt we could have been much better prepared for. I felt that financial literacy was something that was really lacking in our school education. And as part of my business development role in Evolve Loans, which is one of our businesses, at that time in 2016, I felt that there was a real opportunity to educate our Evolve Loans clients about financial literacy. And the idea started percolating from there back in 2016, but then it sort of got put on the back burner for various reasons.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned about educating our school children about financial literacy. Do you think there's more that could be done in schools to help our young people with this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my husband and I are both very passionate about this subject, and we feel that it should be a compulsory subject in schools. And as part of writing Fly, I had many conversations with teachers, school principals, also people in the finance world, accountants, and quite high up educators in university. And so lots of discussion and market research around the idea before we got into writing it. And I learned a lot through that process. I studied the curriculum, and I was passionate about ensuring that what we created would fit well with the gap that we could see. Mm-hmm. And with the curriculum, whilst there's references to financial literacy topics, it's sort of woven through the curriculum, but it doesn't seem to be squarely addressed. Sure. And also not all students get that education, because it depends on what subjects they're doing at school, and if they're electing to do business or economics type subjects. Mm-hmm. And the other feedback that I got from teachers was, whilst there's some great resources available through Money Smart and different platforms to integrate this financial literacy education as part of their teaching, and while they would love to do that and use those resources, they just don't have the capacity or the time. So they all agreed that it was needed, that there's some resources available, and ASIC Money Smart is definitely encouraging financial literacy education, but there just wasn't the time and the capacity to be able to deliver that education. And so that sort of really, I guess, reinforced our thoughts and fueled our passion even more to create Fly, because we hope to see it in the hands of every school leaver in Australia. And whether it acts as a textbook, a compulsory textbook, a school leaver's gift as part of their school leaving pack, or whether it is parents that take the lead in purchasing and encouraging their youth and, their children, relatives to financially educate themselves. I'm not sure exactly how it'll all unfold, but yeah, it was taken in all of that context.
Yeah, and you make a really good point there about parents taking the lead, because we know educators, particularly in these current COVID times, are under the pump more than ever, delivering curriculum in new and innovative ways and bringing in new ideas like around financial literacy. So as parents, when should we begin to have those conversations with our children about finance?
I think that it can never be started too early. With my boys, I'm like, probably one of my strongest personality traits is my honesty. Mm-hmm. I don't have any other mode. I'm a very open and honest communicator, including with my children, for better or worse, I think sometimes. I've used imitation money from when they were very young to get them to understand, the form of money, mm-hmm. and the values of money, even in our home. Like if they want something, I tell them, okay, well, that's going to cost you this much. Go and get me that money. Or, we would play games, and especially during COVID with homeschooling, we had a lot of fun with our imitation money. I've got the coins and I've also got the notes, and we would sit there and play various games and purchase things and sort change and get them to really understand the value of coins, the value of notes, how much change will I be getting. And that's something that they actually really enjoyed doing, and so do I. And I always get them involved in transactions. So instead of me always ordering things, I take them up to the counter and I get them to order, and we talk about the right money and what change they should be getting. And then also, because we're moving to such a digitalized world, they have bank accounts and we have cards attached to their bank accounts, and so they also understand paying by card and how that actually works, that the money's stored in the bank, but they're be able to access that, and when they pay for something on their card, it gets deducted from the money in the bank. Because as you can appreciate, it's a forever changing world, and it's quite a hard thing for them to wrap their head around, from where does money come from. And Jo and I spoke about 5 principles that we like to work through with the kids, and it's with money. What is the purpose of money? And it's an exchange for goods and services, and then going through trying to teach them about the value of money. So what do things cost, and relating that back to things that they are interested in, so that it has some relevance for them as well. Mm-hmm. And the form and function of money. So like I said, about cash versus card, and also talking about loans at the bank, which is obviously a common subject in our household with Jai being a mortgage broker. Uh-huh. How to earn money. So talking about, we have like they have pocket money and jobs that they can do, and we talk about how other people earn money. And there's quite, interesting ways these days. Money doesn't always make sense. YouTubers are earning millions of dollars for opening toys, and we talk about all of that. We talk about all the colors, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that they don't have some, I guess, narrowed mindset about how things work, because there's actually so many scenarios. And then the final thing that we talk about is spend less than you earn. So really instilling that savings mentality, and, avoiding going into credit unnecessarily until you're in a position where you're in a strong financial situation where you're using credit to leverage your position. That's sort of like the simplified structure that we try and approach that financial literacy knowledge with our boys. Obviously, Fly is directed to school leavers, not children our age. And and it's quite a comprehensive 320-page book that has an incredible amount of information in there for that, 15, 16-year-olds and beyond. But, I have got parents also that have read Fly and have learnt an enormous amount as well. So it's a pretty broad market, but we're really trying to support, empower and inform the school leavers so that they feel prepared to fly into life after school, feeling supported, feeling educated, feeling empowered, to really harness the opportunities that come their way, and not to make, unnecessary mistakes just purely because they didn't know this fundamental sort of essential, knowledge. And certainly we found that we would have done things differently had we had some of this education. We definitely had to go through some of the long roads and the hard roads to get to where we are so far. Obviously, always plenty to learn, but yeah.
Yeah, that really resonates with me because I'm thinking, yes, it's a book for school leavers, as you say, but having read the book myself, there was tips and tricks that I picked up myself, but then hearing about the way that you're having money and financial discussions with your own children at a younger age, certainly we can be sowing the seeds in the younger years to get our children thinking and prepared for being financially independent as they grow and get older.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this podcast is all about, fostering a love of reading, but also matching up readers with texts that interest and excite them. So what can young readers who are reading Fly expect to learn in this book?
Well, in Fly, we say in the section, a quick guide to Fly, which is in the introductory section, that it's a bit unique. It is a reference guide. It's a handbook. I'm not expecting a lot of readers to probably pick it up and read it from cover to cover in one go. I mean, some definitely will and some have and loved it, but it's quite informative. So there's a lot to digest in there. The audio version is great because it breaks each subject into a bite-sized listen, which is fantastic for people that find it hard to visually take information in and find it better to listen. But yeah, I say in Fly, I say keep it handy, cherish it like a best mate, and refer to the relevant parts as they become relevant in your life. Use it to help make informed financial decisions and avoid making costly mistakes that may set you back from achieving your goals. So that's the sort of nature of the book. They're going to be able to learn so much from the pages of Fly. We start at the very beginning with the essentials, like your very first job, your very first bank accounts. And we go right through to investing in property, investing in other investments like shares and commodities. Even we give you the tips and tools for starting a business. And then we go into protecting your financial future, because obviously financial freedom doesn't relate to how much you earn, but how well you protect it and how well you use the money that you earn. And then going into things like financial hardship and then money mindset, because how much you have in your wallet doesn't define the person that you are. So we want people to really feel nurtured through all the chapters of their life, and not every chapter is going to be amazing, but you learn a lot from those chapters, and just really empowering them to have the right attitude to really propel themselves forward no matter where they are currently in their situation.
Fantastic. I think that it's such a great and accessible read, and there's so much in there that's going to, help our youth to get a great start financially in life. So thank you for your time on the Writers Read podcast today, Marlies.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Rebecca recommends
a non-fiction book on financial literacy for teenagers. Not something that was on my radar, and I will admit was not on my reading pile. But I'm always up for a challenge, so when Tracey asked me if I would read it for the podcast, I did not hesitate. Now, listening to this podcast, you won't be able to see the book that I'm holding in my hand, so let me tell you that it is a substantial book. It is 336 pages, but don't let that put you off. Now, I did read the entire book from front to back, but I don't think that that's how most readers will use this book. Because it is set out in sections, I can imagine that you would pick and choose the sections to read based on what stage of life you're in. The main chapters are earning money, budgeting, your credit record, major purchases, property, other investments, starting a business, protecting your financial future, financial hardship, and fly, believe in yourself, lifelong goal setting. Now, within these broad headings, each chapter is broken down into subheadings, and those subheadings are broken down again. For example, chapter 1 is earning money, and from there we have bank accounts, your first job, getting paid, paying tax, and superannuation. But within the section on bank accounts, though, you've got 9 sections, from types of bank accounts, fees, to credit cards. Honestly, everything is covered in this book. For those of you still in high school, the chapter on earning money and getting your first job and budgeting may be the most relevant. Now, if you've been working for a while and are planning to buy a new car, maybe chapter 4 is the one you want to read, so you'll most likely skip around a bit. It covers your time at uni debt, moving into your first rental or share house, and what that means financially and even practically. Then there's buying your first home, investments, and even starting your own business. Now, in a perfect world, I think if you had the time and the inclination, I would recommend reading the whole book from front to back in the first instance, knowing that you're not going to retain all of the information, but after reading it, having a general idea about what your financial plan might be for the next 5 to 10 years. Then I would imagine that you'd just dive more deeply into the chapters specific to what you might be going through at this particular time in your life. That's not to say, if you're already in your early 20s, that this book is not for you. I am well out of the demographic for this book, but I still learnt a lot. There are real-life scenarios throughout the book too, and I found these very useful. They help cement the facts given in each chapter, and it just puts the facts and figures into a practical everyday context, and for me, it makes it easier to understand. So, for example, the section on car insurance explains the different types of insurance. So you have the third-party property insurance, third-party fire and theft, and comprehensive insurance. And then we've got these little stories. So a story about Bella, a story about Steve, a story about Will. They've each got a different kind of insurance, and each has an accident or has their car stolen. And it explains what they pay and what costs can be avoided depending on their insurance type. Throughout the book, the author also refers to relevant websites and government agencies, such as the ATO and MoneySmart. The section on registering a business name actually gives you a step-by-step guide on how to navigate the ASIC, Australian Securities and Investment Commission website, to find out whether a business name is available or if it's already been registered. The fact that this book is Australian and it's giving you all of the links and places to go to find out more is really good. You're not left having read a book that's published in maybe the US or the UK thinking, that was good, but what do I do about that here in Australia? The information and direction to other websites and government agencies also reinforces that this book is a guide, to be used in conjunction with all of the other resources out there. The more information you can access, the better. So if you've got an older teenager in your life, you are an older teenager, or you're in a secondary school library, this is definitely a book to look out for. I'd even go so far as to say that no matter what your age, you might just learn something from this book.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode with our reader-in-residence, Marlies Hobbs. If you'd like to win a copy of Financially Literate Youth, make sure you head over to our Facebook and Instagram pages to find out more. To keep up to date with all our episodes, make sure you subscribe to your preferred platform on the Ozcast network, or visit my website at LiTracey.com, where you'll find events and resources to empower young readers.
Writers Read by LiTracey. Getting that book in children's hands. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at Writers Read by LiTracey, a Dave and the Beanstalk production.